Welcome to the CAD Office Training Guide series for FDOTConnect. I am Todd Holt, CAD Applications Training Coordinator. Today I will be going through the Roadway Design 2D Basics Guide. In this series of videos, I will take you step by step through each exercise from the guide. Today we will start with Chapter 1, Alignments of the guide. Topics covered for Chapter 1 will be importing the baseline, designing a new State Road 61, import side roads, baseline side roads design from US 98, and using annotation groups. This chapter will introduce 4 important OpenRoads technologies for creating geometry or line work while designing in FDOTConnect. They are feature definitions, civil geometry and design intent, design standards, and a new feature for OpenRoads Designer, Annotation Groups. And if you're following along within the guide, we'd like to introduce a new workflow terminology using the ribbon. As you see information or a explanation direction like this: OpenRoads modeling, geometry, horizontal, lines, line from element, simple line from element. This means that the OpenRoads modeling is your workflow. The geometry is the geometry tab of the ribbon. You'll find the tool that you need in the horizontal group of the ribbon. And then the lines is the tool buttons that we're going to click on. If you navigate down from that, you line from element. And finally, the tool that we'll utilize is simple line from element. The exercise overview exercises existing roadway baselines for State Road 61 and US 98 will be imported from a provided Landxml file. A new center line of construction for State Road 61 roadway is required to improve the intersection with US 90. The new intersection will be located across from the school entrance on US 98. It will be a 90-degree angled intersection from US 98. The center line will require a new horizontal curve following the FDM design guidelines as follows. See table below. In order to provide minimum property impacts to the local business or businesses on State Road 61, the alignment will be offset from the existing baseline to the west 30 feet and will rejoin State Road 61 at a small skew that does not require a horizontal curve. So the design and geometric criteria that we'll be following is the Florida Department of Transportation Design Manual, or FDM, Part 2, Chapter 210. Design speed for this project will be 45 miles per hour. The facility we'll be designing it from is low speed desired length. The maximum tangent deflection without curve is 1 degree. That comes from Section 210.8.1. Minimum horizontal radius is 694 feet. That information can be found in Table 210.9.2. The minimum length of curve is 675 feet. That table can be found in 210.8.1. And finally, the context class that we'll be designing to is C3, the max grade, and we'll find that table on 2.10.10.1. Definition of a low speed minimum length. This will give a minimum radius at a max super. The Emax is 5%. Low speed desired length. This will give a desired length of curve at a normal crown. Refer to FDM for these tables. So I've double clicked on the FDOTConnect folder to bring up the icons inside the folder. What I'll do is click on the FDOTConnect for OpenRoads Designer. Start exercise 1.1, import baselines. 3, 2, 1, and go. Upon launching the FDOTConnect for OpenRoads Designer icon, it'll take us to the splash screen where we now need to set our workspace. So we'll click on where it says no workspaces on that split button. Scroll down and find FDOT, and then our work sets category. We'll click on that split button and navigate to the 220-495-5520 under bar CE. Once we have that selected, we'll click on the Browse button to locate underbar blankfile.dgn, which we can find in the root of our workspaces. We'll click on the blankfile.dgn and then click Open. Once that loads and we open that file, once we locate underbar blank file.dgn. It'll load us into that file. We'll then go to the OpenRoads modeling workflow. We can click on the FDOT tab of the ribbon, and then we'll go to the Actions group and locate the Create File tool. Click on the Create File tool. This will load the Create File dialog, which we can create QC compliant files. Our first file that we're going to create is going to be the ALGN-RD. So we'll click on that. If you haven't set the discipline, we'll set that to Roadway. We'll look at the file group. This time we're going to be Roadway design files. We'll bring up all the design files. And again, click on the ALGN-RD file. That'll put us in the correct output folder, which is Roadway. The seed file, which we don't have to do, is -ORD. The county is Wakulla for this project. That will set our coordinate system. And you'll notice that there's actions in the action dialog. What it's going to do for us is create a design model called super elevation, then model activate the default. Once those are set, the base file name, the county, we can click create and open the file. Once we're verified that we're in the file in the ALGNRD01.dgn, we can close the dialog box for the create file. To bring up the model dialog, we can go to the Home tab of the ribbon under the primary group, and we'll select the models dialog. Open that up. That will notice that we have a default model and the super elevation model that was created by the action. Seeing that we have a super elevation model created and default, we now want to go and attach a SURVRD and verify that we have a SURVRD file to attach. We can go back to the FDOT tab. We'll go to the FDOT tab and the resources group. We can go to Explore Directories and explore the current work set. This will bring up a dialog within the current folder that we're in from the last file that we created. In our case, we're in the Roadway file, or Roadway folder of the project. We want to go back up to the 220, to the root, and then we'll find the survey folder. And we can verify that we have a SURVRD, which we do. We also have a GDTM-RD, which we'll create in another course guide for existing modeling. So now that we've verified the SURVRD 01DGN, we can go into the FDOT tab, go to the Roadway group. The first thing that we want to do is attach the survey reference. So we click on that. It will take us to our survey folder, and it's going to prompt us for a SURVRD 01 is what it's looking for. Select the SURVRD 01.dgn. Click open. This will attach the SURVRD 0 file 4 different times and apply different level filters for the different groups. There'll be one for topo with a logical name of TOPO. There's one survey file that's attached, or the same survey RD file is attached, and it'll be given a logical name of VDTM for existing ground. That survey file will be attached one more time and given a logical name of UTEX or UTEX for existing utilities. And one last time, the SURVRD file will be attached and given a logical name of DREX. What we just did, we went to the FDOT tab, the attached survey reference, we clicked on that. That attached the SURVRD file, the same file 4 different times, and applied different logical names. So if we go to the Home tab of the ribbon, on that, and the attached tools of the reference dialog, click that, that'll open up the reference dialog. We'll notice that the SURVRD file from our project in the survey folder has been attached, and 4 different logical names have been applied: topo, GTTM, UTX, and DREX. So this is our topo features, our existing ground, and UTEX and DREX files, so drainage and utility. We could also bring our reference dialog by using the function key. We now need to go to attach the Aerials file called Aerials.dgn, which is found in the roadway, and the right-of-way map file, RWDTRD. So we'll go to Tools, Attach. We can navigate to the roadway folder and find the Aerials.dgn. Click on Open. When attaching references, I always like to give a logical name of what the file is going to be used for or what is in the file. So in this case, this will be Aerials. I like to use all caps, so I'll do it. One thing to keep in mind when attaching references is you want your detail scale to match the detail scale of the file that you bring into. That'll set your master and the reference 1-to-1. So you control that by your detail scale. Once your logical name is set, you verify your detail scale. You can click OK. That will bring in your reference. We'll do that one more time for our right-of-way file. So we'll click Attach References again. Attaching the right-of-way map, the RWDTRD file 01. So we'll go to our Attach Tools. Again, you do that by F9. Tools, Attach. We will go up one folder to the right-of-way map and go ahead and attach the RWDTRD file. We'll give that a logical name of RWDT for right-of-way, for right-of-way detail, and click OK. That'll bring in our right-of-way lines. We now have everything that we need. Go ahead and Fit View. That'll bring it in there. We can zoom into our area by our mouse. At step 10, use the OpenRoads modeling workflow to locate Geometry tab. Then in the General Tools group is where you will find imports. So you'll notice we have our baselines, but we're not going to use these. You could in another step, which we'll show in a bonus exercise. So before we do the import, let's go to our level display of our topo in 3, 2, 1. So you notice in each of the SURVRD, I turned off the baseline survey. I'm also going to go back into our Attach Tools for the reference dialog. We don't need the aerials right now, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my SURVRD with the logical name of UTEX and also the SURVRD with the logical name of DREX. Turn those two off. So we just see the topo and the existing ground. We could even turn off the existing ground because we don't need that right now. What we want to do is go to the OpenRoads modeling workflow. So on the OpenRoads modeling workflow, we'll go to the General Tools group of the Geometry tab. And we'll do the Import, Export. This time we want to do buttons. We want to do Import Geometry. We'll navigate to our roadway folder and find the BL98.xml. Click on that and click Open. That will load our Landxml. We'll click the plus and the plus for alignment with the feature baseline and US 98. We'll click on Create Civil Rules, and you'll notice that I am working in 10.9, so it may be a little bit different if you're working on 10.8 version of OpenRoads Designer. In 10.9, you have the ability to select a feature definition or assign a feature definition of linear or point objects. In our case, we already have a feature assigned to the alignment, so we'll click Import. You'll notice that our import of our US 98 came and imported. So we'll repeat that process to import the existing US 61 or State Road 61, I'm sorry. So again, we'll go up to Geometry Tools or the Geometry tab, Geometry Tools, the Import Export split button. Click on the split button to bring up the dialog. We want to choose Import Geometry. And this time we'll go to the All Alignments file, or Landxml, so the All Alignments.xml, and click Open. We'll uncheck the boxes. This time we want Alignment Baseline. And again, you'll see it has US 98. In this case, we just want the State Road 61. Put a checkbox in there. We have a feature definition already set, click import. That'll import our feature definition for the State Road 61 of existing. So if we did not have feature definitions on there, I'll just click on this. For example, let me go ahead and go to the Home tab, go to Attach Tools. I'm going to turn the topo off just to make it easier to see the display and see our feature definition. So let me go in. So when we imported these, they already had a feature definition on it. If you don't have a feature definition associated with it, you would go to your Geometry tab, your General Tools, and then the Standards. There's a split button there. We want to set feature definition. So let me select the State Road 6. I'll bring up the properties from the context menu, and then the feature definition, I want to take this off and just apply no feature definition. And this will be our existing State Road, so I'll change that name. And now you'll notice that there's no feature definition to that. It'll bring it on, so it's a complex element. It's still in the level survey. There's no feature definition. To set a feature definition, we'll go to the Geometry tab, the General Tool, or Standards, will set feature definition. In this case, we want to set our feature type to alignment. You'll notice if you click on the split button, there's different types of features. You have linear, point, mesh. In our case, we want the alignment feature type. And then we click on the split button for the feature definition. We'll be in the alignment group. So your feature type sets your group. We're in alignment. There's two types. We have centerline for centerline construction or baseline. So we'll select our baseline and then select your element and then right click to reset a feature definition. So let me repeat that step again. We'll go to Geometry tab, your General Tools, go to the Standards split button, click on that, set feature definition. That'll bring up our feature definition dialog. We'll set the feature type if it's not to alignment, and then we'll go in and select the feature definition in the alignment category to baseline. That'll give us the feature definition, and then we just click on the element that we want to apply this feature definition to, and then reset by right-clicking on our mouse. That'll set the feature definition. So now, once we have these two in from import, we're now ready to design the State Road 61. That'll be exercise 1.2. Exercise 1.2, we're going to design the new State Road 61. So this exercise will use several construction lines to create a final center line. So we're going to create construction lines here. So the first step that we want to do, we need to locate driveway for the school. We can do that by turning on in our reference dialog. So we'll go back to your Home tab, the primary group, and Attach Tools, or again, you can do your F9 to bring up your reference dialog. We'll turn on the topo, and then we'll also turn on the aerials. So we'll zoom in here in the aerials. If you don't have aerials, so turn those off just to show you something real quick. So let me go ahead and turn off my aerial reference. If you don't have aerials or need a quick reference for yourself, we can go to the View Attributes, which is up here in your top left. And since we've set a coordinate system by our county from the create file, we have the option to do a background map. So you could do a street map. We'll do just that, street map. Give it a second, it'll change display. Let me escape out of this again. So there we have our street map view, which is okay. We go ahead and switch it again. We can have an area to update, so that's a little bit better. But what I like to use the most is from the background map is use a hybrid, which is the hybrid of, if you click it, to your hybrid. So it'll give you a hybrid of aerial and your street map. So you can you'll be able to tell what state roads that you're on in the map. So again, here's our little intersection. Here's our school. And you can kind of see this is a work in progress. So that's another option if you don't have aerials. So what we want to do now is in our feature definition toolbar, since we're going to draw a bunch of construction lines, I'm going to set or toggle this on so we'll see that we have a linear group. So I'm going to click on that plus. I'll go to the Roadway Design folder, Plan and Profile 2D lines, and then do construction lines. It doesn't matter what construction lines that you pick. I'll go ahead and do construction line blue dash, and then I'm going to toggle on set to act. So now I can just go and pick the tool that I want, geometry, and it's going to give me this feature definition. So from here, I'll go to the geometry tab. We're going to go to our horizontal group is right here, and then our lines, line between points. Click that. That will bring up our dialog. You'll notice our feature definition already set. This will be construction line 1. So I'm going to type a 1 in there in tab. So I'm going to try and find my snaps. I don't have them here. So if I don't have my snaps, I can click on this and bring up the snaps or bring up the properties. But I really want to see my snaps and the different snaps that I have. So another cool feature of OpenRoads, if you type in your search, if you know a name of the tool or know a name of a toolbox, you can start typing in. In this case, I'll do my snap mode. That'll open up my dialog, which then I can dock for a toolbox. So I'm going to right click on that and I will show all, because I want to get to my perpendicular snaps here. Perpendicular snap point, I'm going to do a perpendicular snap. Then I'm going to zoom in to my baseline, and I'm going to snap or activate the baseline 98 to start. So now if I draw a perpendicular line off of that, it's perpendicular to the US 98. And what we're doing here is creating that design intent or relationship between the line that we're placing and the US 98 baseline. So I'm just going to strike a length and kind of center it within this US 98 or the driveway for the school. Doesn't matter where, we're just eyeballing in there. Distance doesn't matter because we can change it. So that is our start. So that's construction line 1. So we have that. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my map. So I'll go back to select none. We have our construction line. I'm going to go ahead and turn off, since we have it in there, the right of way, some references. So again, I can do that by F9. Come to the home tab, primary group, and go click on references. So I can turn off my topo. I can turn off the right of way line. So we just have our alignment for State Road 61 that we're trying to, or construction line 2. That's going to be back to our geometry tab. We'll go to the horizontal group. And here, the lines, so click on that split button. This time we're going to pick line from element, and we're going to do a simple line from element. The dialog, we're not going to trim, so we'll set that trim extend to none, but we will use the distance, and we want that to be minus 2000. And then this will be our construction line 2. And tab, so we'll set up the tool, and then we'll apply the tool. So it's asking us to locate the element that we're going to pick from. That will be our construction line 1. So we'll select the element, and then the start point, we're going to snap or do a snap to the end of this line. And that's, again, is going to create design intent and a parent-child relationship when we're drawing or laying out these lines. So we'll set that. Minus 2000 will put us out here. So we'll click through. It's just working its way through the tool again. Data point and then data point. So we put construction line 1 is ruled off of the US 98 perpendicular. Our 2000 foot line is based off of construction line 1, so it's ruled. So if this moves, this line will move too. So that's construction line 2. Escape. Or delete this one and repeat that process real quick. So I'll go to Geometry tab, the horizontal group, the lines. We want to do line from element, simple line from element. So I will fill out my tool. This will be construction line 2, and then tab. And then following my cursor that prompts by it, I'll go in select my construction line 1. I will snap to the end of it and then do a direction of 2000, and then just data point, click data point, and work my way through the tool. So once I have those, that's construction line 1, construction line 2. We'll now go, this is going to be a new group of tools or a new offsets and tapers. So we'll go to our Geometry tab, the horizontal group, but this time we're going to do offsets and tapers and click on that split button. We'll do single offset entire element. This is where we're going to set offset to the west of the existing State Road 61. So we want our offset to be 30 feet. This will be construction line 3. Once we have that set, construction line 3 will pick our existing State Road 61 and then just go in the west direction and data point and data point. So we just did a partial or a offset entire element with a 30 feet offset from here. So that was construction line 3. We set our parameters for the offset to be -30. We'll click the line and the data point, and it places that line. And again, we're designing design intent into our construction lines. So that was construction line 3. Construction line 4. This may get a little tricky, so I'll go over it a couple different times. So construction line 4 has a lot of processes, but the first process that we want to do is we want to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to select our existing state road. So construction line 4, the first step that we want to do that you'll notice is we want to click on the existing state road. We want to try and get this bearing. And if you click on it, you'll notice you can't click if you select it. We can't select it. The trick for this is to select the element, which is the existing State Road 61, and then right click, because right now it's read only. Now we can click on the bearing, and we'll do a Control C as in cat or CAD. That was Control C, and copy that bearing. So again, we will select the element and then right click on it to bring up or take off read only. And we're gonna select the bearing and then copy that bearing by Control C. Once we have that copied, we'll go up to the horizontal group, go back to our lines tools and pick on line between points, bring that up, and we're going to set the parameters within our tool before we click on it. So the first parameter we're going to set, this is going to be construction line 4. So we'll set that for the name. The distance, we want to check that toggle on and give it a distance of 2000. And the line direction will do the same thing in the line direction. So we'll check that box for line. And then we'll highlight everything for this bearing. And this is where we're going to do a Control V as in Victor and paste the information in there that we just copied. So we'll do Control V as in Victor. That'll paste our bearing that we just copied from our line. But we want to change one thing on this. The 11, we want that to be 10. Because if you remember from the first part of it, we're doing a 1 degree deflection for our curve. So we'll change the 11 to a 10. We can then tab. Out of that, we've set our tool up. So what we want to do for the start point is go to our snap modes. We want to pick on the intersect snap. So I'm going to set my snap mode and then zoom out and zoom back in. I want to do the intersect snap between construction line 3 and construction line, this is construction line 4, so this would be construction line 5. I'm sorry about that. So we're on construction line 5, and we want our intersect snap between construction line 3, which is our 2000, and construction line 4, which is our offset line. And then select Once we have this, go ahead and grab that or select the intersect. That's going to place the line, and then it's going to work its way through the tool again and give a distance. So we've just placed that line, and the reason that we've intersect snapped is, again, we're creating dependencies or design intent relationships between our construction lines. So if we snap to it, all these lines are dependent on each other. So our first line that we did was construction line 1 is dependent on the US 98. Construction line 2 is dependent on construction line 1. Construction line 3, somebody start over on that one. Starting over for construction line 4, it was construction line 4. So let me go ahead and delete that. So our next step, once we have our bearing, is to go to the horizontal group, our lines tool. We want to do line between points. So we'll pick that, and we're going to toggle on the distance and give a distance of 2000. We'll also toggle on the line direction. And what we want to do is our copy of a bearing, we want to do Control V as Victor and paste that in. But we want to make one change before we place this line. So where the 11 is, we want to select that and make that 10. Because if you remember from the beginning of the chapter, we wanted a 1 degree difference in between these. And we're going to give this construction line 4. Excuse me. So we've set up our parameters of the tool. Again, our distance is 2000. Our line direction, we pasted what we copied of the bearing, which was 11, but we changed the 11 to 10. We gave it a name of 4. We're then going to set our intersect snap and zoom into the intersection. We want to place the intersection snap between construction line 2 and construction line 3. So if we go and highlight those two lines, it's going to give us our start point. With data point there, it's going to work its way through the tool and produce a line at that intersect for 2,000 feet. And that's all that's to it. So we have our construction line 4. That's based off a ruled office construction line 2 and construction line 3. We can then go to our drawing tools. So on construction line 4 that we just placed, we want to go to the drawing tab, our modify group, and we want to use a trim to element. So we want to trim, if we select that, we want to trim construction line 4 to the US 98. So it remembers this is going to create an interval. But before we do that, let me open up the Explorer and kind of show you a couple things here. So I'll bring up my Explorer window. I want to switch to the OpenRoads standards. I'll click on the standards. I'll find the file that I'm in, which is the ALGNRD. Select my feature definitions. We'll go to linear, then roadway design folder or group, plan and profile, 2D lines group, and construction lines. So here's all of the construction lines that we put in. So that's with the definition. We want to go to the OpenRoads model tab. So this is a standard that's pulling from our RWDTRD labs, but this will have all the feature definitions that you put into this file. What we actually want to do is go to the OpenRoads model. This will tell us all our elements that we have in the file for linear. So we'll click on the file name, go to linear geometry, construction line blue dash, and we'll see that we have our construction line 3, construction line 2, construction line 4. So if we break this out, we'll see that construction line 2 is dependent on construction line 1. So that's creating our parent-child relationships between. And then construction line 3 depends on existing State Road 61. So that's creating a parent-child relationship. This child depends on this parent. So So we're going to create one more on construction line 4. It does not have any dependencies, but we did a snap to the intersect. But we're going to see that construction line 4, as soon as we apply a trim command, is going to create what's called an interval. So it's going to be dependent on this existing 61. So again, we'll pick the trim. We want to trim construction line 4 to the existing State Road 61 baseline. And you'll notice that construction line 4 has now become construction line 5. And it has a brackets interval. So what that tells us is construction line 5 has an interval that gets created when we change the element, and that's dependent on construction line 4. So construction line 4, since we put an interval, has now become construction line 5. And it has an interval on it. So what that did is when we did our interval, or our snaps, select that. I forgot one thing after I reset is, here's our little interval snap. To make these easier to read, let's go to the file. This was in the introduction. I'm going to go to Settings, User Preferences. That's going to bring up my user preferences. I'm going to go to View Options, Civil. I'll go to my manipulator settings and change the manipulator size from 10 to 25 to something easier to see. The normal color, we can leave that orange. Read only, that was gray. Let's switch that to red. And then the selected property pane color, I'm going to do that as a cyan or a light blue. And then selected color, I like to put green as go. And then the manipulator font scale, I'm going to change that to 1.3, just so it's easier to read and see. If you want positional mapping, you turn that on here. It's not quite functional, but you can turn that on if you're used to seeing that. Again, all we're changing here is the manipulator setting sizes. So click on that. I will do Save Settings. Come back in, and now if I select on that, it's going to make that much more bigger and easier to see. So that's an interval on that. So now if we move all these lines, everything will come together. That's what the next exercise shows, but I'm not going to go through. So we're at construction line 5, 6. So we want to place, or need to place the arc between construction line 2 and what is now construction line 5. But we want to apply our design standard first. So to do that, we're going to use the design standard toggle. We'll click on this split button. We want low speed, desired length. Click that plus, and we'll set our design speed 45. And then we will turn on toggle active design standard, or set design standard. So I think we want to set design standard. And now we can go to our tool. We're still on construction line blue dash, so I'll reactivate that. That came undone. We want to go to the Geometry tab, your horizontal group, and this time we're going to do arcs. So we're going to click on that split button. We want to do an arc between elements, and picks the simple arc. So again, that was Geometry, horizontal, the arcs. Click on this split button. We do arc between elements and a simple arc. And then we'll toggle on that design standard and pick arc between elements, simple arc. So we want to toggle active design standard on. That's going to give us a radius to a design standard. So this design standard is on. We don't want the 2083, but that'll give us the maximum. We'll change that to the radius from 2083 to 881, and then tab. This will be construction line 6, since we had construction line 5, a tab out of that. So we have our radius set. We want to pick construction line 2, And then what is now our construction line 5. And we can just go in the space or direction that we want this arc to be placed between the elements. In our case, we want it to be in this direction. I don't think we put it in there. So we'll left click one time to apply the parameters. And then we can do a trim extend. We want that set to both. And you'll see that it trimmed the arcs and created more intervals and more information. Or it trimmed back because it's following the command. So it created another interval for that arc between construction line 5 and construction line 2. You'll notice when we place that, since we have a design standard, a length, we have that applied, we have a little glyph or a little message that we need to look at and see. That Civil Message Center is under the General Tools. Under Standards, we can bring up the Civil Message Center. And in the introduction, this was pinned to the bottom of the screen, which it is now. So we just pin it and toggle that back on and off. So we don't need microstation messages, so we turn those off. We don't have any errors right now. We have a warning, so we can expand the description category out, the arc, or the message and the warning. So arc radius is less than default. Then it gives the description. Design standard value is 2083. The actual value is 881. So we're good with that. That's a little more engineering from the FDM. Have that explained a little bit more or add a little feature in there. So this is just telling you that it's within, it's not the standard value, it's less, so we're okay in this case because we're developing a horizontal curve for normal crown. So it's different parameters that we have. So to make that go away, all you do is just turn off that warning. And now it's turned on. It'll show up. We're just making it aware that we have that. So to recap, we did the horizontal group, the arcs. We did an arc between elements and simple arc with the design standard toggle turned on to set the speed or the radius. And then we changed the radius in this tool to 881 instead of 2083. So now that we have all our construction lines laid out and our center line for the new State Road 61 design with the design intent, we want to use a new tool, which is going to be in horizontal, and the geometry or complex geometry is going to be complex by element. So we can select that. But in this case, we don't want the feature definition to be construction lines. So we're going to set our feature definition. So click on here. I'll back out and go up to alignments. We're going to create the alignment feature definition of center line. And then toggle that on and toggle it off. And that's going to give our active feature that we use. And this will be center line, underbar. This will be SR61. And then tab. We can leave it to manual or you can change to auto. I'll leave it for manual for this because I want to make a point. When we select the elements that we're going to complex together, we want to make attention or pay attention to that arrow. Because you'll notice if I select towards the start of it, the arrow or it's going in this direction. If I go to the other end, it changes directions. If you have arrows that are in different directions of your line, that will mess up when you try to apply stationing. It'll restation because it thinks it's starting it from here instead of a continuous line. So keep in mind when you complex something together, those arrows need to be in the same direction. So I'll select my first element. I'll select my second element. I'll zoom out a little bit. I'll select my third element, which is the arc, and their arrows are all going in the same direction. And then my last element, which is construction line 5. And when I'm done, I don't have any more elements to select. I will data point. And then locate next element. I don't have any more, so I'm going to do a right click and apply. Reset. You'll notice that all our construction lines have now become center lines. It doesn't look like I set a design speed, so I'm going to toggle on set design standard, that element on there. So we may just have warnings. Oh, it did do it, so I turned the warnings off. So if you turn those on, you'll notice that this first part has a little warning on there. So let's go back to the Civil Message Center. Our first warning was the arc, that's fine, or the radius of the arc, which is, we know that's a warning, but it falls within the parameters. Our second warning is a tangent length is shorter than minimum. So design standard value is a 100. Our actual value is 71. So to fix that, we can click on the element, and it's saying our design standard for this, that has to be 100 feet, but our actual length of this line is only 77. So to change that, to make this warning go away, we can select, and I'm going to give it a distance of 105, and then tab, or enter. And that will make that warning go away. It doesn't change the line, so we just changed the design intent or the direction of this line and made it longer to fall within the parameters. So we just cleared out one warning. So that's another way to do warnings. You can also come to the Civil Message Center and right click and zoom to. That'll take you to where that glyph warning or error message glyph is. That one on, so we turn the warning off. So we've designed a new center line with construction lines. We've changed the feature definition to a new center line. We gave it a name. Now the only thing that we're missing is stationing. So stationing, to put that on, is horizontal. Then you go to the modify group, click on that split button, and we want start station. And then we'll have to go to the define station dialog. The start distance, we're going to locate the element and then put that in when we need it. The start station, however, we're going to set that to 700. So all I need to do is do 700. I can put the plus in, or I can do 00.0 and then tab. It'll put the plus in there for me. And then I want to locate my element. And I'm going to go back to my intersect snap. Turn or snap to the intersect of the US 98 and my State Road 61, the new center line that I just designed, and then give that a stationing. So now I select that, I have an alignment with stationing, and I've just designed an alignment. So we've designed our new State Road 61, we've laid it out, we've changed it, set the feature definition, put stationing on it. Let's check it with a report. To check it with reports, we'll select, and then bring up the context menu. We want to click on the little paperclip with a string. That's a horizontal geometry. We will expand that out to give us our horizontal alignment review style sheet. That'll bring up this report, which it looks good except for stationing. So if stationing, or if any information is not in the correct format, we need to format this report. In order to do that, we'll go up to the Tools tab and then Format Options. And we'll come into our format for stationing. Right now it's set to 3 decimal places, but what we want to do is change this SS to the SS plus SS.SS, and then close. That'll change our stationing to the readouts that we're used to seeing or we want to see. So that'll change this report for us. We can verify that, we can print it out, save it to XML. That's just a report to save. So we can do save as, we can close. So now that we've laid out a center line, we've designed it, we've applied stationing to it, we have design intent, our design standards set to 45. We can come, double click, we need a backup if we need a backup. Your alignment file is changed in FDOTConnect to where your horizontal and your vertical will now live in that file. So your alignment file is a living file. It's just not for text or your stationing ticks anymore. It's your actual horizontal, you're controlling alignment, both horizontally and vertically. But if you do need to save a backup, which is a good process to get into, is to back things up, what we'll do is go to the General Tools. We'll click on the Import Export. This time we want to export. So if I click on Export, we're going to export type is going to be Landxml. The version is going to be 1.2 and only active profiles. So we're not to the profile chapter yet, but the rule of thumb is you can have multiple profiles on one alignment. So if you have more than one profile, you want to uncheck this toggle, or it's only going to save out to this Landxml the active profile. So if you have multiple profiles on an alignment, when you get further down the road, untoggle this so it saves all those alignments or profiles to that single alignment. So again, it's going to work us our way through the tool. So data point, and then locate the element that we want to save. So we'll locate our new center line of State Road 61 that we've laid out. We don't have any other ones, so we'll right click to reset, and then it's going to ask us for the selected version, which is 1.2. So we'll data point and click anywhere in space, and then data point and click for the active profiles. So we don't want to save only the active profile. We want to save old profiles. It'll then prompt us to put a name on the Landxml or .xml file. So it's going to remember the feature definition or the feature name that we have already in there and save it into the Roadway folder. So we click Save. So now we have a backup of that file. So now we can do import side roads. So we'll go back to our side roads and we'll go back to the General Tools. We're going to import Geometry. This time we're going to pick on the friendship.xml and go ahead and click Open. After you pick your friendship XMLs, that'll bring up your dialog, alignments, center lines. So we want to do both friendship and friendship 2, and then click Import. That'll bring our 2 alignments in. For the friendship, go ahead and 1.4 baseline side road design from US 98. So that's going to take us in. We're going to design a couple US 98 side roads or baselines over here. And we can also design another intersection for the gas station here or a driveway. So what we'll want to do is for this dialog is we're going to turn on Civil Accudraw, introduce you to a new tool. So we can toggle that on. That'll bring up this icon. And then to actually toggle the Civil Accudraw on, we'll select that. So you'll notice that your other Accudraw goes away because we have Civil Accudraw turned on. So once we have that one turned on, so we toggle it on, we want to come over to some of the different modes and find the station offset mode or delta station offset. We want the station offset, so we'll toggle that on. Civil Accudraw toggle on, we want to set the station offset, and then we'll go up to our horizontal group and pick on the line between points. And since this is a split button, it's going to remember the last tool that we used, and since we did line between points, it's going to remember that. So we can just click up here, or you can go back to your split button and do line between points. Before we do this tool, I'm going to go back to my element select. I'm going to rotate my view so it's a little bit easier to manipulate. So I'm going to go up to rotate view, and you'll notice the first time it might be on dynamic. I don't want to do dynamic, I want to do rotate by 2 points, and then I'll select my US 98 in a couple different places and rotate it. So now I have this rotated in a northern direction that's a little bit easier to see. So let me go back to Civil Accudraw, toggled on, and now I'll do my line between points. And you'll notice by that cursor, I have a station and offset. What I want to do is tab and go to my offset and then type from your keyboard O. And that will allow us to select a reference element or reset to command. So we want to select our US 98. And now you'll notice that it's tracking and doing a station offset from that distance. So it's tracking along the US 98, and it's also giving us a offset distance based on 98. So once we have that tracking, we want to type in 39, so toggle in, or type in for the station. It's going to be 39, and you can put the plus in if you want. So do plus 00.0, and then tab. Offset distance is going to be 80. And the start point. So that's going to put us at station 39 plus 00, an 80-foot offset to draw a start drawing a line. And then we can use our perpendicular snap from there to snap back and place that line. So the stationing would run from top, or we could do the opposite and do a station, which we can do on the next line. Put an offset of 0 and do a perpendicular line off that. That will let us draw a line for it. So there's a couple different ways you can use the Civil Accudraw to track off of. So let's go ahead and repeat these steps for another center line. And to better explain this, let me turn on my background map again, or my area folder. So let me go back to hybrid. So if you turn those on, you'll notice that these are not exactly perpendicular. So it might be a better way to do it, but we want to do this driveway and this driveway. So let's go back to the line between points, and we're still tracking off of our center line. So in this case, we want 36 plus 40.0. Our offset, we want to do 0, so it'll put it right on the center line. And then we can data point. Will give us that start point at 36 plus 40, 0, 0. And then we can eyeball it and draw our center line. It doesn't matter, we can go however far we want to go. We just want it to start at 36 and angle it. So let's make this second driveway a little more accurate and do that same thing. So let's delete the line that we put in there. Come back to my horizontal group, add lines. So I'm going to do a station because it's still tracking because we're using Civil Accudraw. 39, this time I'm going to do 00.0, then tab, offset of 0, and then I will data point, because that's going to put me at 00 at 39, and then just draw in direction to give me my center line. So there's the two center lines. So we could do the same thing over on this side and draw. That's a quick and easy way to use Civil Accudraw to lay out some of your side roads in your alignment file. Let's do one more over here. Looks like that's about 29 plus 50, or 29, 55. 29 plus 55.00 and tab. This will be 0. Data point. And just draw. We could do perpendicular. Just draw that, but that'll give us another center line. We don't have stationing on these center lines, but we put stationing on using the modify tools, which we'll do that later. But we do have stationing on our state road, our existing 61 and the existing US 98. So I'm going to turn toggle off my Civil Accudraw. Dock that up there. So to set or annotate an element, we want to go to the Drawing Production tab. We're going to have annotations. So there's two different ways: model annotation or element annotation. Since we have an annotation group to display the stationing that's associated with the two features, feature definition, center line and baseline. So whatever feature that you draw with that, it will apply the annotation group. So we want to do that and annotate the element. So we'll click on the A. It's going to ask us to locate the element. So we'll locate the center line that we designed with stationing on it, our US 98, and also the existing 61. We can scroll out and find our Friendship 1 and Friendship 2, and then we're all done. We do a reset by a right click. That will apply the annotation and display our our stationing on there. So that's how you get it to display. What we've also done, so you'll notice that we don't have different models for the different annotation or scale. That because your annotation scale will control the size of the annotation group or the text. So if I come to my drawing scales in the drawing production and say I want to change that to 1 to 40, you'll notice my annotation group text of the tick marks and that they'll get smaller. So that's in accordance with the scale. 50. To show this a little bit further, let me go back to 50. You go to the Home tab and bring up the level display. And then if I click on the file that we're in, I'll click on U. You'll notice in the element or level display, there's different elements for in the group for text alignment. So this is going to control how or what we see for the different scales. So let me move this over here and toggle that on. And what we did on the FDOT tab is go to the FDOT tab, and then under Actions, there's a Filters group. So let's click on that split button. That will have different display filters for the different majors according to the different scales. So we have one set for only 100-foot majors with 20-foot minors, 500-foot majors with 100-foot minors, and then 1,000 with 200 and 5,000 with 500. So it'll have the correct major and minor, and that's going to display it. So how this is going to work, it's going to be a kind of a twofold. Is it'll turn these levels off depending on what majors I use. So let me go ahead and go to my scale. Before we do that, let me go to the file, because I don't have my drawing scale attached anymore. So let me go back to Settings, go to Toolboxes, navigate in here. I want to find my drawing scale. Click that on, and go ahead and mount that. So we have that. So let me say I go up to 1 to 100. That's going to blow everything up, but now my 100-foot majors are not correct for 100 feet for the scale. So I want to come to FDOT and the Actions group and go to Filters. I need my display only 500-foot major annotations, so I'll click that on. That's going to turn off all the other scales that are not associated with the 500, but it'll leave my 500-foot majors and my minors on for this scale. So likewise, if I go to a bigger scale, 1,000 or smaller, so say I want to go back to the 50 or 40, 1 to 40. So I'll go back to 1 to 50. So this group is no longer valid for the 500. I want to go back to 100. I would come back to my Actions, go back to Filters, come back to my Display 100-foot major annotations. And that'll turn on. So I have my 100-foot majors and 20-foot minors. So that's how we control annotation. It is recommended not to annotate into your alignment file, because if you reference this in, you're not going to have the control in a reference file that we do in this file. So it's recommended to turn, after you check this, to turn your annotations off. And we can do that by going to Drawing Production, Element Annotation, Remove Element Annotation. And we'll come back and select the elements that we want to remove it from and remove the annotation. So now if we reference this file, this alignment file, into another file, we can control how it's displayed in that file. So it's all about controlling your annotation groups in the files that you're running in. Thank you for joining me today for the CAD Office series for FDOTConnect. This was Chapter 1 for the Roadway Design 2D Basics, where we covered importing and exporting, designing, and annotation groups.